This year, ending 2024, who I think is going to be the men's flyweight championship. I actually think it's going to be Alejandro Pantoja, so I think he's gonna retain the belt. He's probably going to fight Amir Albazi. I think Amir Albazi is fighting Brandon Moreno for that #1 contender spot. I think Amir Albazi is probably going to beat him. Brandon Moreno has not looked the same or didn't look the same in his last fight. And then I think you're going to see like a Kai Kara France or a Brandon Roybal back in the mix. But Alejandro Pantoja looks like a demon in his last couple of fights. He's been fighting, a man scorned. You remember his when he won the belt the first time, and he was like, "Dad, what do you think of me now? You love me now, Dad?"
Mm-hmm.
Like how crazy was that shit?
That's crazy.
Very motivated Pantoja. And I think he's just fighting at an entirely different skill level in the rest of the division at the moment. Who do you got? Who do you think at the end of 2024?
Bantamweight, I'm going to go with, I think Sean O'Malley, he's fighting Chito Vera, right? I think Sean O'Malley is going to retain, and then he's going to have no choice but to fight Corey Sandhagen. And I think Corey Sandhagen is going to win that battle. And I think that's probably what's going to happen in 2024 in terms of moving with the belt. So our boy Corey, I like to see him up there holding the belt at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's fire. I love that pick. For featherweight, I'm actually going to go with Ilia Topuria here. Unfortunately, I am kind of like feeling like Volk, maybe his time in the sun is coming to an end. You get knocked out by Islam, and statistically 35 fighters 35 and older are like 2-11 in title fights. And one of them being, I think, like Tyron Woodley, winning above that age. I could be wrong about that, but it's like Volk is now 35. He just lost his first title fight post 35 years old. He's now going up against Ilia Topuria, who's a scary guy. And we've seen him do horrible things to really good fighters. And you can only be the greatest for so long. Everybody falls off eventually. And as much as I love Volk, it pains me to say it, but I think he's going to lose against Ilia. And then I think you're going to see Ilia defended against guys like Max Holloway. It'll make things interesting the way that the middleweight division has become interesting this past year. So that's what I got for that. I think it's going to be Ilia. What do you got next?
Well, it's also interesting because that impacts me, because if Volk retains, Max Holloway may be more willing to go up to like a lightweight situation, and then that could throw a wrench into here. Just thinking right now, you have Islam Makhachev. A lot of fights were announced today. Charles Oliveira is fighting Armand Sarukian. Dustin Poirier, where did that come from? Dustin Poirier is taking on Benoit Saint Denis all the way down here at 12. Michael Chandler is going to fight Conor McGregor somewhere. So if Conor McGregor wins and Michael Chandler is 5, that's in the summer. Michael Chandler may drop to 7 by that time. But Conor, he'll come in at 4 and immediately title contention with 1 win. So you never know how that's going to play out here. But I think Islam Makhachev, because of how everybody's matched up, I think is going to fight Justin Gaethje. I think he's probably going to retain. It depends on what Conor does. Say Conor comes back and sparks Michael Chandler. Now we're just getting fun. You could see Conor McGregor versus Islam Makhachev at the end of the year. And I think Islam Makhachev is probably going to retain it against just about probably every single one of these guys. So unless something crazy happens, I think we're going to see Islam Makhachev holding the belt at the end of the year. But who knows? We could have a Conor McGregor Islam thing with it only takes one quick knockout from Conor to be right back and fighting for the belt. And, Islam will be for it. He wants to make money. It's going to be hard to argue. So, give me Islam on that.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. For welterweight, I think it's going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov by the end of this upcoming year. I think you're going to see, Bilal versus Leon coming up first, and then enter Shavkat. And no matter, either of those guys, he has the skill set to dismantle either of them. And maybe see him fight one more time, maybe against Colby. Maybe against Colby. I know Colby was calling out for Wonder Boy, and you have Gilbert matched up with Jack Della Maddalena, which is fun. I like that Gilbert Burns is willing to fight down in the rankings a lot of the times and take on like stud contenders and show that they're human too, like he did with Hamzat when he took him to the decision. But I think it's going to be Shavkat. You got guys matched up. Shavkat's waiting for a matchup. Maybe he just waits in the wings for that, for that Leon Bilal fight to take place, and then takes on the winner of that one. And he's got the grappling to take apart Leon, and he's got the striking to just absolutely dismantle Bilal Muhammad. I was going to say something terrible, but we're still early into the video, and I don't want to get flagged by YouTube or like not promoted. So I'll just stick to he's going to get dismantled and dominated. So yeah, Shavkat there. Middleweight, you got a good one. Who do you think?
So Sean's taking on Dricus du Plessis. I think Sean's actually going to win that one. Call me crazy. I think everything's kind of stacked against him. People expect him to not. He's going to be a little bit smaller, and everyone's like, oh, Dricus is in his head. I don't think he's in his head. I think he's just kind of that was a weak moment. He brought something up, and then obviously it's being delved into. Something's going to come to the surface. But I think if anyone's crazy enough to just move on from that or seek some type of vengeance because of that, it would be Sean Strickland. And I think he's the type of guy that if you fight people, if they fight angry, they're not going to fight smart. I think he's going to fight the same way and probably better if he's angry. He's going to be a little bit more aggressive, put a little more pressure on Dricus du Plessis. And I just don't know if Dricus is giving the credit where he should against Sean Strickland because he's so awkward, because he defends so well, and because he has that incredible pressure. Now you start to see Sean Strickland. He's got a lot. He's slimmed down, man. He's got some abs. I think he's motivated. I think we're probably going to see a really good Sean Strickland coming in here. So I say he retains against Dricus. Israel Adesanya is out. Robert Whittaker just got knocked out, so he won't be fighting for the belt. Jared Cannonier potentially. You could see, I think he's on a bit of a win streak. So Jared Cannonier against Sean Strickland. I think Sean's going to light him up. They already fought and Jared technically won that fight, right?
Yeah, but it was boring. It was a trash fight.
It was boring. So I don't think the UFC would be willing to risk it and do that again. Marvin Vettori and him are boys, and I think Sean would come out on top of that. And if you're talking about Sean Strickland, you got to probably go 2 fights deep. So the last fight of the year, you know what? I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to be out a lot of the year. He's sick. Brendan Allen is just not a big enough draw for him to fight 3 times in a row. And I don't think Sean Strickland would necessarily maybe want to take a jiu-jitsu guy here, but I think you could see Brendan Allen up at the top. I don't know if he's scheduled to fight somebody. But I think if he did, it would maybe be Apollo Costa or maybe Marvin Vettori. I don't know if he's going to be able to use his grappling and choke out Marvin Vettori, and Marvin's crazy. So that may be a knock there. You know what? I'm going with an outside pick. If it's not Sean Strickland, I don't know if it'll be Sean Strickland. I like Kyle Barallo. That's you want to talk about somebody crazy from all the way down at 15 to start to start the year. If you take Kyle Barallo, he's looked freaking phenomenal in every challenge up to this point. He can strike, he can kick really, really well, he can defend. He's got good. We haven't really seen his gas tank tested super well, but I think he's got all the makings of a guy that could actually run through the division. You look at Anthony Hernandez, Chris Curtis, Paul Craig, Nasruddin Imavov's a little bit boring. Jack Hermansson's been, I almost said he'd been ran through. That's not necessarily true, but it's not untrue, but it just has weird connotations. Then you run into Khamzat, who's always sick all the time, right? And very particular and not necessarily in the UFC's best graces. I could see Kyle Barallo getting gifted someone maybe like a Brendan Allen, goes out there, gets a win there, pops him up to 8, and then he's right there in title contention by the end of the year. If he's a big enough draw, he's got, the tattoos to support a double take. Give me Kyle Barallo as an outside shot to have the belt. If not, make it to the top 5. I see a high climb for him in 2024.
Yeah, he's definitely got the skills. I like Kyle Barallo. We've been on him since he crossed over from the Ultimate Fighter. I think it was the Ultimate Fighter he got into. And he's a dog. I like him. That's such an interesting pick, but he would have to go through so many people. I don't think he has a fight booked, and I don't think Chris Curtis does either. I feel like that would be a fun fight. But
not for Chris Curtis.
No, maybe not, but for the fans, yes. Although Chris Curtis, he does withstand a lot of tests that they throw at him.
Is he on a losing streak?
He might be, but
he's got to fight Marc-Andre Barrios.
Oh, that's a good match.
Weeks.
So for light heavyweight. Oh yeah.
Last fight.
Yeah, they fought already. I forgot about that.
You want to go into light heavyweight?
Yeah, let's do that. It's a weird one. I'm gonna go with Johnny Walker.
Really?
Yeah, I think Johnny Walker is going to surprise everybody this year. I think he's going to beat Magomed Ankalaev. Well, I don't want to spoil my pick for later, but I think Johnny Walker is on a stupid run this year.
Wow.
And just surprise everyone. I think Johnny Walker is he's just such a cartoon character. He's so comical. He's so goofy.
Get out.
And you know, if you so think about this, right? Say you have like O'Malley as a champ next year. You know, not maybe not to end the year. I agree with what you said, but like we just have so many goofy ass champions in the UFC right now. You got Sean Strickland. You know, you got Leon, who's like clearly not all there. Islam, who's clearly not all there. And I just think it would be so funny if Johnny Walker became. What do I really think? I think that Alex Fajeda is actually going to retain to end the year. I think that you're going to see him fight Jamal Hill. You're going to see him maybe fight Jan Blachowicz again. But in actuality, I do think Alex Fajeda is gonna retain. I was just trolling, fucking around, saying Johnny Walker is going to hold the belt, but it's going to be Alex Fajeda. What do you got for heavyweight? You got a fun one.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because you have no idea what's going to happen. You know, John is recovering from a pretty nasty injury. You don't know how long they're going to give him, if he's eventually ever going to come back. You know, Stipe is somehow at force despite a whole pandemic happening and him not fighting. He hasn't fought since 2020. So the fact that he's still at four kind of tells you a little bit about the spot of the kind of the state, I guess, of the UFC heavyweight division. I like Jailton Almeida as a force, and I like Tom Aspinall as a force. So I think it would be crazy if we could see those two guys meet up this year. And the winner is the heavyweight champion. Obviously, that's dependent on John Jones. I think John Jones, we saw, you know, he's not going to fight Cyril Gane. He dismantled him. And he's probably going to fight Stipe at some point. If Stipe, you know, if the stars align, if his injury heals, he's probably going to face Stipe and then retire. So both of those guys are going to be out. Tom Aspinall is the interim champion, and you know he already beat Sergey Pavlovich pretty easily. He's either going to have either Curtis Blades. You're not going to give Cyril Gane another shot. So he's either going to have a Curtis Blades or a Jailton Almeida. So give me Jailton Almeida. You know, I think he's looked dominant. His only problem is he's undersized. You know, he's really a light heavyweight. Now, here's an outside chance. Jailton Almeida for light. I'm going to give you a two for Jailton Almeida for light heavyweight champion, and I'm going to go with Tom Aspinall for heavyweight champion. Bada boom, bada bing.
Yeah, Jailton Almeida is he's definitely like a smaller heavyweight. Not smaller, but like you could tell he could cut weight. You know, and still pack a punch. Yeah, he's fighting.
He's fighting Curtis Blades. I knew that sounded familiar.
Yeah, he's got that one coming up. See, I think you're actually going to see Tom Aspinall potentially defend his interim belt more than John Jones defends the actual championship belt in like 2024. You know, because basically like he's the acting champ at this point. He's healthy, whatever, and you know he's been beefing with Stipe a little bit, beefing with Jailton Almeida. But I think ultimately, like you'll see, I think what's going to happen is John Jones is going to come back, be healthy, beat Stipe, and then retire. And then you're going to have Tom Aspinall. Either they're going to just like give him the unified belt at that point. You know, if he's defended the interim belt a few times, or you know he fights for a vacant belt against a fight that I really want to see. You know, against Cyril Gane. I think Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane would be a sick one. But I think if you see John Jones retire after fighting Stipe, like it's been rumored that he may. Because I don't think that there's like the drive for John Jones to fight anybody else. There's no one that's like a legacy impacting, you know, fight. And does he need the money?
Tom Aspinall. If he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall, I'm going to consider it a stain on his heavyweight career. To call him the greatest of all time because he went up and had one fight against Cyril Gane and another, and who else did he fight?
At heavyweight, just Cyril Gane.
He fought one time at heavyweight, and his second fight is going to be Stipe, who's 43 at the top. Like,
well, but Stipe does have the accolades. That's the thing. It's like
but that's like saying like, wow, he beat Andrei Arlovsky now.
Yeah, well,
that's like saying it's spoiling for the rest of the video, but he's fighting Worley.
Waldo. Acosta-Cortez.
Yes, Waldo Acosta-Cortez. That's why I was calling him Worley. Waldo Acosta-Cortez is going to beat Andrei Arlovsky and should be considered a legendary fighter because he beat Andrei Arlovsky. Don't pay mind that he beat Andrei Arlovsky in 2024. it counts the same. It doesn't count. Beating Stipe Miocic now doesn't mean anything, or doesn't mean quite the same as beating him in 2019, 18,
But
17, 16.
it does though, because he is technically the closest that John Jones could get to fighting like a lineal champion in the heavyweight division.
But the UFC doesn't give a shit about that. You're talking about his heavyweight, like hit him as a legend of the heavyweight division is going to be associated with his name when you know that his 2 fights are Cyril Gane, a guy who's lost to the belt 3 times, and like
Stipe is the GOAT. Stipe is the heavyweight GOAT. It's not like
for what? Until Tom Aspinall gets the belt and defends it 3 times.
Okay, so then there's a new one.
It's gonna happen so quickly.
Stipe is the guy. They're holding out for Stipe right now. John Jones, the UFC, everybody's holding out for that fight because I feel like they're going to do like a joint retirement at the end of it.
I guess, yeah, they must have something big planned. But yeah. I mean, so either way, Tom Aspinall is going to be the interim champion. Either they just give it to him or they're going to pick somebody else. If Jonathan Almeida beats Curtis Blades, which I think he will, Stipe is going to be out of the thing. Sergey would have just lost. Maybe he'll get Sergey. No, he just lost. Tom Aspinall just beat Sergey Pavlovich easily. Yeah. So, it's not going to be him. Maybe they give it to Cyril. It's going to be Cyril or Jonathan Almeida, and like give it to Jonathan and make that more interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, you also do have the possibility of that Curtis Blades Tom Aspinall rematch, though, depending on the winner of the Jalton fight, because that's kind of unsettled business. And Tom Aspinall tore his ACL like 2 seconds into that fight. You
could do that too. You absolutely could do that.
You run it back with like the winner of that, maybe. But I don't know. I do think it's going to be Tom Aspinall though to end the year. I think maybe he could be John Jones. Maybe
Jonathan Almeida for pound champion
to end the year.
Jonathan Almeida, pound for pound champion. I think you're going to see him around the same time be able to go down, get the lightweight strap because he's close enough to that weight. Unless we see him coming against Curtis Blades and just totally committed to heavyweight, I could see him, beating Curtis Blades because it's grappling heavy and he really utilizes grappling well. And he utilizes momentum and not momentum. He utilizes his leverage really, really well. And he's just a freaking strong dude. I think he's probably naturally stronger than Curtis Blades too. So I just like him in every area. He really doesn't need to be concerned about his weight until he gets to a Tom Aspinall. And even if he goes up against a Cyril Gane, he could take the John Jones route, So I think basically Jonathan Almeida runs through the division until, and I think he, you go against Alex Pereira, he's going to be all over him in terms of the grappling. So I think when it comes to light heavyweight, if he could do it at heavyweight, he could probably do it at light heavyweight too. And he had before to the bottom of the division. So I think he could take the light heavyweight and take heavyweight simultaneously, kind of similar, just stay at a weird weight and allow yourself to fluctuate, dude. Like go into those heavyweight bouts at 240, 250. I mean, Tom Aspinall's his main composition. Yeah.
See, I don't disagree. If you want to go bold takes of who's going to be
at the very least pound for pound, because his ability to,
if you want to go like truly bold takes in this upcoming year, what I think could like really happen, and you want to see a guy shoot up the number 1 pound for pound, pick up another belt. They're going to go back to MSG in November. It's November, October, whatever month they do it in this year. It's a guarantee. And there's one man that's the king of Madison Square Garden at this point. He's on 2 of the highest sold events. He's won 2 belts there. It's Alex Pereira. If you want to talk about like a wacky world where someone claims 2 belts, or is holding 2 belts concurrently this year, it's Alex Pereira. You have him fight somebody. You have him fight for the heavyweight strap at Madison Square Garden. He's going to win. And sure, you talk about like the grappling, whatever. Anybody could be all over him with the grappling. We've seen him survive like bad grappling in the past. He hasn't fought anybody that's like a true, like we haven't seen him fight like a specialist, like a Paul Craig or something like that. But he's got the equalizer. He has the left hand and he can survive grappling. He can survive grappling exchanges and he can scramble pretty decently and get back to his feet. So like I think if you want to talk about bold takes and who's going to be top of the heap this year for the whole UFC, I think it's going to be fucking Poatan. it's the equalizer, bro. And he walks around bigger than fucking some of these heavyweights walk around, you know?
That's true.
And all it takes is that one left hand. And I mean, literally, it's so crazy to see like what he did to Yuri Prohashka. He's inches away from his face and he throws that left hook and Yuri Prohashka hits the deck, you know, insane. So, I feel like it's almost more realistic too. But if it's at Madison Square Garden, at any time,
It's got to be Bejeda's fight.
yeah, anytime Alex Bejeda fights at Madison's, dude, they should have his fucking face like inscribed into the side of MSG at this point, or like a plaque when you walk in, or you know how they have like the Ewing, like the Patrick Ewing Lounge or whatever.
Right.
And the Chase Bridge, they should have like the Pejeda boxes or some shit, you know, like. And when you
he's got to get some sort of nameage.
Yeah. There should be some sort of honor there, because especially if he hoists 3 belts by the time that would.
Well, that's true. I don't know if anyone's ever done that before outside of Vegas. I mean, imagine probably happened in Vegas, but even in Vegas, three belts in Vegas, you know, that's.
Has anyone held 3 belts period in the UFC? Not concurrently, but has anyone?
No. Yeah. That's a good point. Has anyone? No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's won 3 belts.
You might see this guy who was inspired to come to the UFC by that fucking stupid Izzy interview become like the greatest combat martial artist of all time. You know, I don't know. It would be crazy, but I feel like that's not out of the question. So you want to jump into what we got this week?
Yeah, let's jump into what's on the name of the video, Ankalaev versus Walker 2.
Yeah.
It's time!
All right, what's kicking, everybody? We're back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith. It's my amigo Tom. You might have just heard us talking about who we think is going to be the champ by the end of 2024 for each men's division. The ones that matter, you know, we're probably going to see them cut one of the women's divisions this year. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, comment. You know, if you're watching us right now, jump in the chat. Let us know what you think. We love to talk with you guys. And turn on notifications as well, so you know when we go live. You could also listen to us on Spotify too. If you can't watch us on YouTube, we got the full video and audio over there. Did I miss anything?
No.
All right, then let's jump in. We got our prelim notables. All right, I'm going to kick it off. One that we mentioned before, you kind of like glossed over it. We got Waldo Cortez Acosta coming in here against Andrei Arlovsky. This is a pretty obvious fight. You know, Vegas has it teed up this way for a reason. It's a minus 600 favorite for Waldo Cortez Acosta, whereas Andrei Arlovsky is a pretty heavy dog at plus 430. I do like Andrei Arlovsky. We have talked about it in the past that there should be like a Legends League in the UFC, and Andrei Arlovsky would be perfect for that because homeboy's about to be 45 in like just 2-3 weeks. And that's old for athletes, especially old for the UFC. And he's coming in here against Salsa Boy, who is 11-1, right? 11-1. No, sorry, 10-1.
10-1.
Had a loss against Marcos Rogerio de Lima by decision, and then finished Luka Brzeski in his last fight. Has a couple other good wins, you know, Jared Vandera, Chase Sherman. That's kind of like how you start your way out in the heavyweight division. Check if you're legit or not. Andrei Arlovsky is slipping. His last loss against Dante Mays, not great. 6 months ago, he had a fight against Dante Mays prior to that, I do believe, and Dante Mays put him out. We might start to see that point where Andrei Arlovsky is like losing his chin. It's crazy to say at 45 years old, but you know, getting knocked out by Dante Mays. He was dropped by Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I think Waldo Cortez Acosta is just going to dismantle. It's going to be elder abuse, unfortunately. We're going to see another legend of the sport just get dominated by an up-and-coming guy who isn't like a spring chicken necessarily. He's 32, but he is very athletic and he could do it all. You know, he's good with grappling. He's got good hands. The finish against Brzeski in his last fight, I wouldn't say it was a fluke or anything, but he's not really a finisher, so I think you're gonna see him dominate Andre Arlovsky for 3 rounds with the hands and the grappling, really, and take him to a decision. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it all. At this point, Andrei Arlovsky, and I alluded to it at the beginning in that like pre-video or whatever. We don't know if we have a name for it yet, but I alluded to that, like beating Andrei Arlovsky now and just beating the name. Really, people are going to associate the fact that he had this whole other last chapter, last portion of his career where he was in his 40 pluses, and he's got some wins, but some of them are just squeak wins against guys who are at the bottom level of the heavyweight division, like Jake Collier. He's got some squeak split decision wins there. And then he starts to accrue the losses where he's got a submission loss and a knockout loss from Dontel Mays. 6 months later, he's back in there almost, 45 years old. I think he's like 3 weeks away from being 45 years old at the time of the fight. Take down a guy who's 32 years old, just got his first knockout in the UFC and has been coming into his own a little bit. I remember when I saw him on the Contender Series, wasn't totally sold on him. I think he might have been on there twice. Could be getting him confused with somebody else, but he's got a very similar style as a lot of heavyweights that, they don't have a particularly like overwhelmingly athletic build, and they go in there and they have a strong jab and a two and then a couple hooks and then a power punch here and there. Jesus Christ. Waldo Cortez Acosta has came into his own as he's been in the UFC. Yes, he does have that loss to Marcos Rogerio de Lima that went to decision, but we're talking about where Marcos Rogerio de Lima, submitted Andrei Arlovsky not too long ago either. So in direct comparison, I know styles make fights, but at this point, Andrei Arlovsky is not winning a lot of grappling battles. He's old and he's just not as powerful as he was, and he's not as quick as he was able to get in there before, get people down and find a better position. Same thing goes for his striking. He doesn't have much power either, whereas Waldo Cortez is coming into his own here. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage, a ton of youth advantage. He's almost 13 years younger than him. And he's 32 years himself. So, Waldo Cortez Acosta, I think, is the guy that you got to go with in the situation. And I just wonder, like, why are we still continuing to see Andrei Arlovsky fight? I understand that he's paid his debts to the UFC and he's, a legend. And if he wants to fight, I think to some certain degree, you got to let him. But like to another degree, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, have him fight. I don't even care if you run back old fights of his where he like fought shittier guys. Like, just have him fight shittier guys if he wants to keep fighting.
Yeah.
It's unless he thinks he's going to hold the belt eventually again, and Waldo Cortez Acosta is step one to getting there. I don't know, but I doubt it. All right, you got any for us?
Yeah, I am gonna go with Marcus McGee over Gaston Bolanos. Both of them are actually pretty solid. Bolanos is a very polished striker, but in this fight, I think that Marcus McGee has a little bit more of a knockout of potential here. He throws a lot more wild combinations that's going to keep Bolanos on the back foot. Really, the way these guys fight, the one is who's going to have more dominance, have more success is going to be the guy who's able to move forward and assert his game plan. That's not a whole novel idea here, but it gets really elevated when talking about this fight where, Gaston Bolanos on his back foot is a completely different fighter than when he's going forward. Same thing for Marcus McGee, where he has spinning attacks and wild offense that really only happens from moving forward. Moving backwards creates, a lot more challenges when it comes to finding openings to land the more energy draining attacks. And then if you're throwing them and you're not landing them, obviously that's going to have long-term effects on your longevity in the fight. So, with that being said, I'm going to go with the guy who's shown us a little bit more inside of the UFC, also a ton more finishing ability, submitted Journey Newsome, knocked out JP Bays. In LFA, he has got a couple knockouts there as well. Finishes all over the place. Marcus McGee is very well-rounded. He's fast, he's explosive, and he's really hard to predict. Whereas Gaston Bolanos, he is a little bit younger, but they've both been through about the same level of MMA experience. I just think he is a little bit slower. And, something about Marcus McGee, he's just got that X factor. It's like his explosivity that comes along with his strikes. That's really the difference maker that I don't see as much for Gaston Bolanos. He's got good movement. He's got, good technique. It's just, he doesn't have that, immediate, like that, wow, that, put away power, one shot from multitude of angles. He's just not as explosive or dynamic. So for that reason, go with Marcus McGee to get this one done. But I think it's going to be a really good fight. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Marcus McGee, like you said, a lot of power in his hands, very creative with the striking. And, Yeah, the pressure that he applies is it's not conducive to opponents that fight off their back foot, like you said. And wins over JP Buys and Journey Newsom, especially finishes. Those are guys that have been in the UFC for a while. A couple of fights under both of their belts here in the organization. To go out there and finish them the way that he did is really impressive. He's got a good record so far. I like the pick. I like Marcus McGee this week. I think he's going to get a finish. I got one I want to talk about real quick, and that's Matthew Semmelsberger over Preston Parsons. And I'm a Matthew Semmelsberger fan. Sure, he's been slipping a little bit lately. He's 2-3 over his last 5, but I like Semi the Jedi. He's got a lot of power in his hands. He's got strong boxing, really creative with the striking. And you look at Preston Parsons. Preston Parsons is messed up against strikers that somewhat emulate Matthew Semmelsberger, have that power, throw strong hooks. Yeah, I mean, he got finished by Eros Medic in his last fight, but I just think this week it's going to be a comeback fight for Matthew Semmelsberger. We've seen him, go out there, throw bombs against guys, and I think against a guy like Preston Parsons who fights with his chin a little bit up in the air, and relies a little bit more on the grappling. A guy like Matthew Semmelsberger might go out there and put his lights out. I like him. I think he's going to get back on track this week. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think I would be more inclined to agree with you on this one because I think Preston Parsons, we've seen him get knocked out before. Like you said, he keeps his chin high. He's not the best with with head movement. He really wants to take it to the ground. And that's where his victories come, is from submissions, typically on the ground there for Preston Parsons. And Matthew Semmelsberger, even though he can get caught on the ground, he does have a good jiu-jitsu background and he is dynamic off of his back. And we've seen him even, win some fights and have success being on top position as well. But also he's I think just a better striker when it comes to this matchup with Preston Parsons. My question is he going to be able to defend the takedown and, play good enough defense to get away from Preston Parsons when Parsons shoots in for the takedown and eventually going to get him down, because he is going to get him down. And Matthew Semmelsberger is going to find himself on his back at some point in this fight, either in the center of the octagon or up against the cage. Up against the cage, Semi has shown his ability to stand up and work the cage and wall walk and stand back up and get it to a fighting distance. But, my concern is if he finds himself in the middle of the octagon, Preston Parsons on top, landing big elbows and unable to switch position. But I think because of his edge in the striking and his ability to back up to the cage and use this cage to get up, and obviously his adeptitude in it, his just overall ability to handle himself on the ground is what I was trying to say, and not an entirely too intelligent way. I think Semmelsberger will have the intangibles needed to get this one done, but it's really hard to say because you almost see two Matthew Semmelsberger. Sometimes you see Semi the Jedi who comes out and he does these awesome things and he, fights up to his ability, but other times you'll see him just come out and fall absolutely flat. And we have seen him fall flat fairly recently, especially against Euros Medic. So, hopefully we'll see Semi the Jedi. I don't think I'm going to bet on this one just because he's so unpredictable. So I'm going to stay away from it with my pocket. It's basically a pick 'em. So I wouldn't, count on it to save a parlay or anything. But I'm going to be rooting for Semi the Jedi to get it done and hope we get some consistency out of him and can root for him and pick him in the future.
Dope. Yeah, you got any more for us?
Yep. The last one I have is going to be Tom Big Train Nolan against Nicholas Mata. And the reason is Mata has been super inconsistent. We were just talking about inconsistency. He got in off the Contender Series from a decision, which doesn't happen too often. 3 years ago, it takes about a little over a year to get a fight with Jim Miller, loses to Jim Miller, which you can forgive, but the timeless Jim Miller. But not necessarily, Jim Miller, I think we're going to figure out how old he is. He's towards the end of his career here, obviously. So not necessarily a loss you want to have, but understandably so. It's your first fight in the UFC. You go on to fight Cameron Van Camp, you knock him out, and then you take, 8 months off there, fight Manuel Torres, get TKO'd with an elbow there. You can come back. There was a premature stoppage with Trey Ogden about a month ago. So he finds himself back in the cage now, unpredictable fighter, leaves his head in the air, and absolutely does get hit as much as he can hit other people. Tom Nolan has been described as Corey Sandhagen-esque. He's a guy who fights in that longer karate style. He has that quick pop ability to shoot in and land a devastating shot. He's also very intelligent when it comes to his fight IQ and his ability to cut off the cage. My only concern for him is that he is 23 years old and it is his UFC debut. He looked really good in the Contender Series 4 months ago with a knockout win over Bogdan Grad. Before that, obviously passing every test in front of him. But, as you can see here, 0-1, 2-0, and then I guess 7-1 is actually pretty solid after, in a turn on, very young in his MMA career, should I say, 6-0. So unproven, but I am going to have to go with the 6'3", 76-inch reach of Tom Nolan to get it done. Like I said, it plays to his style. Nicholas Mata is a guy who's not necessarily going to force a takedown. He will stand and bang with you. So having that distance is going to be big for Tom Nolan. In his UFC debut, he's looked, under control and cerebral thus far. So I'm going to trust him to get it done here. I typically stay away from guys who are making their UFC debut, but I like the distance here. I liked what he showed me, or I say the distance advantage, and I liked what he showed me leading up to this fight. So I'm going with the 23-year-old. Maybe he's the next big thing coming out of Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Tom Nolan. So, and like you said, Nicholas Mota is a guy that maybe very inconsistent, but maybe like a setup type of guy in this situation. I think Tom Nolan's going to go out there and do his thing. So I like the pick quite a bit. And when you hear about like these prospects that come into the UFC with the reputations that they do, a lot of the times they come through and it's correct. And then on the flip side too, you hear about guys that have bad reputations coming into the UFC. Like, who is that guy that had the neck tattoos and had like 4 different names?
Yeah, well, that's exactly why I can't remember his name. When you have 4 of them,
Yeah.
and you keep saying it's be a thing. And I just read something on him the other day too. And there was a cough to it.
But yeah. It was like something Iskarov or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you hear about like those reputations, and a lot of times they're true one way or the other. And the UFC does a good job of exposing or vindicating those reputations. So you want to jump onto the main card, or you got any more prelims for us?
Askar Mazharov was his name.
Yes, Askar Mazharov. That's right.
Well,
that was one of his names. That's the name he fought in the UFC under.
Yeah, that was one. Exactly. Moving on to the main card. Here we go. Little pull it up Jamie action over here.
Yeah, I like this.
Find me the name of that guy. On it, sir.
That's great. I like this fight a lot. We saw Phil Hawes fight. We saw his last fight, actually. Who did he fight? Ikram Elixirov last time around. We saw him get knocked the fuck out in person in the Prudential Center, and that was a great time. That's why, like, earlier in the episode when Tom was like, oh, our boy Corey Sandhagen. We met Corey Sandhagen as part of the meet and greet. I maintain the fact that the UFC puts on the best live events with the meet and greets and everything. It's so cool. But we've seen Phil Hawes. He's slipping a little bit. He's 2-3 over his last 5. And he's been losing to really good competition, right? You got Chris Curtis up there. I like Chris Curtis. Ikram Elixirov is a scary man. He reminds me of like a Bigfoot type of character that just walks you down. And a loss to Roman Dolidze is okay. Roman Dolidze is pretty good. His last fight around, not great. But he did have, who was that he had like that leg lock against? That was crazy. The Roman Dolidze fight, was that Marvin Vettori that he beat? I can't remember now. But anyways, I think Phil Hawes is going to get knocked out this week by Brunno Ferreira. The chin's slipping. He's getting a little sloppy with the head movement. He's like moving his way into strikes a lot of the time now. We saw that with Ikram Elixirov. When he gets rocked, he's not like composing himself. He's looking to engage further in battle, which really isn't a good sign. Like if your chin's shot and you get rocked, you can't step further in and try to go further into that battle. You have to regain yourself. And Phil Hawes is not doing that. Phil Hawes wants to step into the fire with guys. And I think a guy like Brunno Ferreira, who he can get a little wild at times, but when he's himself is composed and he's throwing those nasty hooks that he has that find guys' chins, and he keeps walking them down, a guy like Phil Hawes is going to want to engage. Brunno Ferreira is going to stand steady and throw with him. And, they'll probably catch each other, but just with Phil Hawes and the state of his chin nowadays and Brunno Ferreira and the power that he packs, I think Brunno Ferreira is going to find his chin. His hands are like heat-seeking missiles when he's on.
Yeah,
I think Phil Hawes is going to get put out this week. What do you think, Tom? I see you nodding your head there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go against you when you have his only wins coming to a decision victory over Kyle Dawkins and Deron Wynn.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you have your losses to Chris Curtis, which again, Chris Curtis is solid, Roman Dolidze is solid, and Ikram Alexarov is solid. But continually to adding these knockout losses to your record because of head movement issues or people just being able to find you obviously is not what you're looking for here. And Bruno Ferreira, I know he's coming off a knockout loss himself, but listen, that dude, Nursultan Rozabayev, he is the truth. We were just talking about having, being 6'3" and going against a much shorter opponent and having that reach advantage. Yeah, well, that was Nelson Rozabayev against Bruno Ferreira in the last fight. He caught a kick, gave him a fucking strong right hand, knocked him down, and that was the end of the fight. He is going to have a reach disadvantage here, about 5 inches, so that's not insignificant. But we haven't seen that one-shot knockout power, and I think Bruno Ferreira, that wasn't indicative of a chin issue. That was against a guy with a really strong reach, caught his leg, kept that reach, and was able to just reach out there. And there was really nothing he could have done other than try and block it. But I think if Bruno Ferreira is going to fix that, not be as telegraphed with that leg kick or have a game plan that's as quickly able to be picked up by the opponent. I mean, listen, he's 31 years old and he was 10-0 going into that fight. I think maybe when you get that air of just in the fact that you can't be beaten going, I think sometimes you can make mistakes, and that's what I think we might have saw. So we may see even better, more motivated Bruno the Hulk Ferreira in this fight against a guy who absolutely does not pose a threat when it comes to having a strong chin. I think Bruno Ferreira is going to be in there and he's going to find Phil Hawes' chin at least once in this fight, right? And it's not going to take more than 1 or 2 shots to put Phil Hawes down, according to what we've seen. So for all those reasons, yeah, I think Bruno Ferreira is the guy to get this one done.
Yeah, I love that pick. I really think he's going to do it. Next up, we got Ricky Simone versus Mario Bautista. To keep this one kind of short and sweet, we saw Ricky Simone lose against Song Yadong in his last fight. Got dominated. Song Yadong now going up against Petr Yan as a result of that. It was a great fight, great performance for Song Yadong. For Ricky Simone, not so much. I think it was a big learning experience for him. The guy has 24 professional fights, but that was only his 4th loss. And you can learn a lot from losses, especially against a guy like Song Yadong, because there's one thing that bantamweights consistently talk about when it comes to Song Yadong, and that's the power that he brings, right? And so, you've heard guys like Corey Sandhagen talk about, you learn how to recover in a Song Yadong fight. I got rocked. Let me, get my shit together and get it together real quick. And Ricky Simone had a hard time with that the last time around. And then also just defense in general. You realize, okay, I can't absorb as many strikes. A guy like Mario Bautista does not bring the same power to the table that Song Yadong does. He does bring incredible grappling, though. His jiu-jitsu skills are great, and he's just been slowly rising up through the ranks, submitting a lot of guys along the way, and out grappling guys to decisions. But Ricky Simone, I think, has the grappling to put up with this with Mario Bautista. But he also brings the hands to the table too. His hands were not totally inept against a great boxer like Song Yadong. It made me really hopeful for Song Yadong's future. I think he's going to be a stud in the bantamweight division if he's not already in your eyes. But Ricky Simone, I just think the defense is going to be better, the hands are going to be better, and the grappling is better than Mario Bautista. So I'm going with Ricky Simone this week. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think Mario Batista's path to victory is through the ground, and I think Ricky Simone's biggest strength is his grappling ability. So he's really developed a strong striking game, but his grappling was his bread and butter and what wins him fights, and its position. That's what beat Jack Tank Shore. Granted, he didn't get the win against Song Yadong, but Song Yadong, like you said, one of the best in the division, and I think you learn a lot from him. A lot of people talk about Song Yadong power being some of the craziest. And once you get hit from him, it really changes your kind of view on power and what is standing across from you in the octagon. So having nothing like that coming back at him this fight, I think is going to be potentially a breath of fresh air. I think you're going to see a reinvigorated Ricky Simone. I think he wants to get right back on track because he was on a really, really good path before. And I think the way Mario Bautista is going to win this fight is going to be through the ground. And I just don't see Ricky Simone getting dominated there. If he does, then I think, there's a potential to talk about, have we seen the best of Ricky Simone if we see him now get dominated on the ground? I don't see that happening, though. I see him going in there, putting on a strong performance and, continuing to work his way back up the bantamweight division and try to avenge that loss. So I'm thinking Ricky Simón is going to take this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the pick there a lot too. Favorite, but I like it. Next up, we got, what is that? Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez, right? I'm going to go with Jim Miller here. And, Gabriel Benitez is a great grappler. He does train out of AKA. He's over there with all those Dagestanis that reside in America and a lot of great wrestling over there. Famously Daniel Cormier's home gym. Jim Miller is an even better grappler, though. Jim Miller is historically a great grappler. And Gabriel Benitez does not have hands, really. And Jim Miller, when there's like a stalemate in the grappling, he lets his hands go to work. We've seen him do that plenty of times. And again, to keep it short and sweet, I think Jim Miller is probably going to find a TKO win against Gabriel Benitez this week. Just because Gabriel Benitez is going to be looking for those takedowns, Jim Miller is going to stuff them. If they do go to the ground, I think Jim Miller's, he's going to find a way to submit him still. We've always seen him do it, but against guys with lesser hands, he just chooses to stuff the takedowns and just outbox them and outstrike them. We've seen Gabriel Benitez get finished by Billy Quarantillo on the feet. That's not great. And a couple other guys. Who else finished Gabriel Benitez recently on the feet? That wasn't Charlie. No, I'm sorry. David Onama. David Onama is going to do that to guys, though. I think Jim Miller has the better hands out of the two, and it's going to be a grappling stalemate. So I'm going with Jim Miller. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, we've seen Gabriel Benitez have some weight issues before, and obviously David Onama still able to pull out the victory there. So I think, potentially we could be looking at a weight cut issue for Gabriel Benitez as he gets a little bit older, obviously coming in fine against Charlie Ontiveros. What was the reason why this got canceled back in February of last year? Gabriel Benitez withdrew. So potentially an injury here for Gabriel Benitez, get it rebooked a year later. Been out for a little bit, right? So his last fight coming against Charlie Ontiveros back in August of 2022. So some potential for ring rust here for Gabriel Benitez against Jim Miller, who's always active. And like you said, when he gets into a bit of a stalemate, you can see him throw them upperhooks. You can see him throw those uppercuts and, throw hooks, dirty boxing. I think Jim Miller is a wiry guy and a wily veteran. So I think he's going to never give up. And I think, you start to see some kind of not relaxing, but you start to see as the fight goes on into the third round, Gabriel Benitez just, not there as much as you would see from Jim Miller. I like the vet here. And I like that they're giving Jim Miller at 40 years old, they're giving him fights that are winnable, but still difficult. A guy who's 35 years old, so a little bit younger, been some ups and downs, still a solid record, still a decent record. So it's going to be an interesting fight here, but I'm going with Jim Miller. I think he's just going to be able to outlast Gabriel Benitez, especially considering Benitez's time off.
Yeah, I like it. Next up, we got Matheus Nicolau versus Manel Kape, and this is the fight that I think I'm actually most excited for on this card. I like Manel Kape. I think it's a bad business decision to not have him on a pay-per-view where he's on a microphone. Now, maybe they did that consciously because he just kind of lets his fucking mouth go and lets all sorts of F-bombs fly when he's up on stage. But I just think it's a mistake not having him up there jawing again. But also, Matheus Nicolau, I don't think he's an English speaker, first language. But regardless, both great fighters. They've fought in the past 2 years ago where Matheus Nicolau pulled out a split decision victory. It was a tight fight. I just think at this point in their careers, Manel Kape has gotten much better, and Matheus Nicolau is good. He's really, really good. He was winning that fight against Brandon Royval up until that crazy fucking knee. That's a highlight knockout if I've ever seen one. That was the knee followed up by that quick jab, like right there, that put Matheus out. But I still think he's a great striker, and it's going to be a really competitive fight. Tapology thinks it's going to be a knockout. I don't know. Matheus Nicolau is not a guy that's like susceptible to knockouts. That Brandon Royval was just like that. That knockout was absolutely beautiful. It's going to be a tight fight. It's going to be a tight striking battle. Matheus Nicolau is such a technical guy, and Manel Kape fights with anger. I think you're going to see Manel Kape win. I think it's just, it's just how it's going. Like, he's just getting better and better with every fight. And naturally, we're going to need to see him in those positions where he's on the microphone. So he's going to keep winning until he's forced to be on a pay-per-view. That's probably what's going to happen. And we're going to have another wild, zany personality fucking screaming obscenities to thousands of people in an arena, and offending like half of the world. I can't wait for it. But I think that's how it's going to keep going. Manel Kape's going to keep winning, and he's going to keep getting those moments to, speak whatever's truly on his mind. People keep canceling fights against him. He's a scary motherfucker. So, yeah, I'm going with Manel Kape. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of the reason why they're thinking it's going to end in the first round is because of this flying knee round one finish he has over Ode Osborne. And you look at Matheus Nicolau, his most recent fight, he got knocked out via a knee in the first round by Brandon Royval. So I think people are maybe expecting a little bit of that history to repeat itself. But I think, Manel Kape is a guy that we know starts in the first round extremely fast. He's a high energy guy. He comes out throwing. And, I think to a certain degree, Matheus Nicolau is a reserved fighter and takes a little bit to get going in the sense that he's going to try and feel you out and he's going to try and be cerebral with it and not overextend himself and put himself in bad situations. This is a really, really tough fight because Matheus Nicolau got the win 2 years ago when they fought, and it's hard to tell. Their level of competition's been about the same. They haven't, went up and fought, and actually they both fought David Dvorak to a decision. The loss to Brandon Royval obviously looks a little bit worse for Matheus Nicolau, which is what kind of made it possible because, like you said, a lot of people are canceling fights against Manel Kape. It's hard for him to get a fight, and it's hard for him to, move up the rankings because of that. So, I think Manel Kape starts a little bit faster. I think he's a little bit quicker with his hands, and I think he has a little bit more power in them. I also think he leaves himself open a little bit more, and Matheus Nicolau is a little bit more cerebral and is going to try and pick his spots. Ultimately, I think we end up seeing this one go to decision, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like something about me is saying that Matheus Nicolau is going to get it done. I think he's going to just land. I mean, I think Manel Kape is going to come at him fast and hard in the first round. And I think it's probably going to go the first round to him. And then I think he's going to be, a little bit drained from that. And I think you're going to see Nicolau probably split the second and take the third. And because of that, he's going to get a decision. So I'm going to go with Matheus Nicolau plus money, moderate underdog to get it done. I think he's obviously going to be aware of the Brandon, the knee that caused him the knockout. And I think when we haven't seen, some KO issues before, I don't know if we're necessarily going to jump to see them now. Minus 245 really does feel like a wide line for a fight that's close, that should be this close. So I'm going with Matheus Nicolau. I think that the fact that he's such an underdog makes it a little bit more attractive from a betting perspective. But it's a toss-up for me. It's a toss-up for me.
Yeah, you're right. Because, I mean, it does kind of feel like a trap line for Manel Kape. That minus 245 does feel like a trap line. I'm not going to lie. Like, they know that the money is going to come in on him. So they made it so steep. And it's not necessarily like a skill differential. It's just that they know that the money is going to come in. So the line isn't like super indicative of, the gaps here. I think they just know that a lot of people are going to see loss in Matheus Nicolau's most recent fight. I mean, if they look at the knockout, it makes him look vastly underskilled. But he's a great fighter. Like, I'm very tempted to go with Nicolau because of the odds and because of the skill level and because of the history between the two. But
look at this line movement.
Yeah, that's crazy. Going, wow. And how is it for Manel Kape? Has it moved? I'm assuming it's moved for him as well. Yeah. So the money is coming in on Manel Kape
consistently and steadily.
Yeah. Huh. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Manel Kape, but it's not something I feel like particularly great about one way or the other.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would, for a matchup that is a rematch, you would think that a majority of the money would come in on the guy that won the first fight.
Not just to mention a rematch, but a split decision rematch. I mean, that's what makes it a little bit tougher. Is it's so tight that first time. I like Nicolau a lot. Like I'm so conflicted about this fight, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Manel Kape. You want to go to the main event now? All right, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Magomed Ankalaev is straight up cursed. We got Batman saying Ankalaev with a black heart, fire emoji, and strength. Strong. If you know Jeremy Fragrance, that guy, you ever hear that guy, Tom? Power, yeah. Strength. Yeah, Magomed Ankalaev, great fighter. I'm a fan. I'm not a huge fan, but I'm a fan because he's got a diverse skill set and he tends to rely more on his kick. You know, he's out there, he's throwing punches with strong guys like Jan Blachowicz. You know, he's not afraid to engage, but when it comes to the grappling, he is a great grappler. But he's cursed at this point. Last two fights ending in a draw. Well, the last one was even weirder against Johnny Walker. You know, both men thought the fight was still on when it was off, and Dana White had to come into the octagon and break it up. That was such a funny moment. There's like legit between these guys, and they hardly even speak the same language. I think Johnny Walker is going to go out there and surprise people, though. He had like flashes in that first fight, even though it didn't go on for very long, where he was touching Magomed. And Johnny Walker's a guy that we've seen evolve. You know, I was just talking about that with Manel Kape. We've seen an evolution from Johnny Walker. And at the plus money and just like how cursed Magomed Ankalaev's career feels at the moment, I'm willing to bet on Johnny Walker. You know, it's like how many bad things could happen to Magomed Ankalaev? You know, you have two fights basically get scrapped. And one of them was a title fight. You know, and like I said before, Johnny Walker is like kind of in that title picture, and a win against Magomed Ankalaev here like really just elevates him. Like now all of a sudden you have a world where Johnny Walker is in title talks. What the fuck? You know, crazy. But yeah, I think he could get it done against Magomed Ankalaev this week. I think that his striking has looked so crisp in his last two fights. Or last three fights really. His striking has looked so crisp. His jab is popping off like a piston. It's the wrestling, you know, that's the difference maker for Magomed Ankalaev here. But we don't really see him fall back on it. And the real no, I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev here, actually. I changed my mind. It's a 5-round fight.
Did we lose you? We might have lost him. Well, if you're still paying attention to the stream, I'll pick up where he left off because I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev. I think Magomed Ankalaev is the more well-rounded fighter. He's obviously the much more polished striker. I think, you know, even though he can leave himself open sometimes, obviously being 18-1-1, I think with an extensive kickboxing background, in addition to his grappling ability, he doesn't use his grappling ability, but it's there if he should need it. Johnny Walker doesn't really have it if he needs to go to it. And I think that's a big difference. And also he's a wild striker. So that type of striking is going to drain his energy much quicker than it's going to do anything to Magomed Ankalaev, who just has to, you know, stay within himself and just find where the shot's coming from and block there. I think, you know, some shots were getting through for Johnny Walker at the beginning of that other fight, but I think you were seeing a lot of backpedaling on his part, some low leg kick investment from Magomed Ankalaev. You know, now coming off two, you know, no decisions or no contest type of fights. I think he's going to be hungry for a win here. I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to get this one done. Hey, what's going on, Keith? Don't mind me just tap dancing while you're figuring it out.
I don't know what just happened. Sorry.
Nah, no worries. I picked up right where you left off because I was going with Magomed Ankalaev anyway. I was laying out the reasons why I thought he was going to win from the fact that it's a 5-round fight. I think he's going to utilize or use less energy using defense. I think he's a more polished striker, and I think that's going to leave him to being more protected. I know Johnny Walker throws wildly, but I just don't know if he's going to throw wildly enough, land enough, and with power enough to put out Magomed Ankalaev. He's just a far more polished striker at this point. And I think I was listening to somebody talk and they were saying how, you know, Johnny Walker used to be laughing and joking and cordial and smiley. Then he went over to Conor McGregor's gym in SBG Ireland and he, you know, had become very stone faced and, you know, very technical. And then now they see him smiling again. Well, listen, that timeline corresponds directly inversely with how well he was doing when he was smiling and joking and kidding. And that's when he won a fight and dislocated his shoulder. And then he, got serious, went to SBG Ireland, went on a 3-fight win streak against Jan Kutalaba by submission, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith. Right. And then now he's back laughing and joking. He gets an accidental illegal knee and an eye issue. Or not an eye issue, but a brain issue, according to the doctor, has to come back. So I don't know. Maybe we're promoting the wrong thing here, but all I'm saying is from the time spent, since he made the switch to Conor McGregor's gym, he's been winning. So I don't know if that's necessarily a recipe to mess with, but if that is the case and he's no longer there and he's back with wherever he was, I think that just swings the pendulum back into Magomed Ankalaev's corner. So that's what I'm going with.
Wait, he's no longer with SBG Ireland?
That's what I heard, unverified. But I heard that from someone saying he's no longer with SBG Ireland. He's laughing and joking, and they were the reason why he was a little bit stone-faced. Unsubstantiated claim.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because him and Kavanaugh had such a good relationship. Like, I feel like he like really kept Johnny Walker in line too, which was good. I could see a world where Johnny Walker does knock out Magomed Ankalaev, but that's the only path to victory is like a crazy flying knee, like a Superman punch off the cage, Anthony Pettis style. Other than that, I think it's going to be a 5-round decision for Ankalaev. Even though I don't want him to, it's going to be a fun night of fights, and I think it's going to culminate in a boring, round 3, 4, 5 in the main event, but it is what it is. Other than that, sick card. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's gonna be great, especially that co-main. I'm so excited for that one. That's gonna be an awesome fucking fight.
I'm just looking down here and skimming to see if because Johnny Walker weighed in on Conor McGregor's fight, but I'm not seeing anything that says he's left yet. But I don't know. Oh, it was with the Schmo. So I don't. Maybe he hasn't left. So anyway, yeah. I was taking Magomed Ankalaev regardless, but the fact that he hasn't left, not necessarily something against him. So
cool. I don't think it's a bad idea. Like if you want to sprinkle something on an underdog, on a heavy dog on this card, if Johnny Walker was the guy that you were going to take, I think it's so funny though that they're pitching it as Ankalaev versus Walker too, when the first fight didn't really even happen. Look at that. The money is coming in on Ankalaev heavy. So okay, interesting. Not surprised. I think we should pull these up more. It's a good idea to look at these.
Oh, line was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you see where the sharps are going. That's like a stock exchange.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm with Ankalaev, but I think it's not a bad idea if you want to sprinkle a little bit on Johnny Walker. If you're in it for the entertainment and the fun of it all, then Johnny Walker's an exciting bet.
For sure.
But responsibly. Don't just throw money on Johnny Walker for a knockout if you don't have it. Anything else you want to touch on before we call this one quits?
Nah, before we do the pick rundown, just want to say one more time, if you're liking or you're watching along with us, appreciate it. Drop us a comment. Let us know who you're looking forward to watching this weekend. What fight are you most looking forward to? What do you think is going to be the championship status of all the belts at the end of 2024? Drop us a like and make sure you subscribe to Pickin Winners if you haven't already. If you made it this far in the video, we appreciate that subscribe there. Other than that, follow us on X and on Instagram. It's in our little things here for Instagram and up at the top for X. Let us know. But with that being said, let's hop into the pick rundown. All right. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I got Tom Nolan taking your pick over Nicolas Mata. I'm going with Marcus McGee taking another one of your picks over Gaston Bolaños. I'm going with Matthew Semmelsberger over Preston Parsons and Waldo Cortez Acosta over Andrei Arlovsky. On the main card, I'm going with Brunno Ferreira over Phil Hawes, Ricky Simone over Mario Bautista, Jim Miller over Gabriel Benitez, Manel Kape over Matheus Nicolau. But that's a tight fight. And I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev over Johnny Walker. What do you got?
Awesome. I'm doing Tom Nolan over Nicolas Mata. I'm actually taking Farid Basharat over Taylor Labulas, Marcus McGee over Gaston Bolaños. I'm staying away from the the Jedi fight, just because he's so unpredictable, and I am taking Waldo Cortez Acosta over Andre Arlovsky. I think you could probably bet on a finish there too. As far as the main card goes, I'm going Brunno Ferreira over Phil Hawes by finish. Ricky Simone over Mario Bautista. I think he's going to out-grapple him to a victory. Jim Miller over Gabriel Benitez. I think by finish or to go the distance. I'm going to go Matheus Nicolau by decision over Manel Kape and Magomed Ankalaev to get the win. I'm going to say he's going to finish Johnny Walker in like the 4th or the 5th round, because Johnny Walker is going to be using some. He's going to get crazy. He's throwing some back spinning kicks and stuff like that. I think he's going to be out of gas for his first. I think it's his first 5-round fight. So I think that's going to be an obstacle for him here.
Yeah, if it was a 3-rounder, I'd feel differently, but a 5-rounder, it's going to be a tough one for Johnny Walker. All right, thanks for being here. You touched on all the important stuff, like not even 30 seconds ago. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you for being here, Tom. Thank you for the people that stuck around with us. What is it, Monday? Yeah, on this Monday with us. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. And have a good night.